Hey y'all, it's Jenna and Steve is over there holding all the books I want to share with you today. I've read some really good books. There's even a 5-star in there, which I do not hand out 5 stars easily. And only one book I didn't really care for. Steve's telling me to hurry up because he's struggling. Well, maybe you should drink less rum and more milk. He said that's stupid. So before Will Smith was slapping Chris Rock on stage, he was punching aliens in a movie called Independence Day. And if you liked Independence Day, you might like The Hatching by Ezekiel Boone. Just replace aliens with spiders. I don't know if you're familiar with the Nazca lines, but they're those lines that form a shape that you can see from the sky that I believe is still unexplained. I'm not sure. But it's a spider, a monkey, and a bird. So this book references that, which I liked. And these eggs have hatched. And spiders, or they're not sure at the beginning, are attacking people and killing them. But all over the globe, not everybody's communicating on what's going on. Like China has accidentally dropped nukes on itself and the USA, and everyone's like, what are you doing? They're like, pay no attention over here, we're just dropping nukes. It was an accident. And black masses are attacking. There's earthquakes and seismic vibrations, like different stuff going on. You do get attached to certain characters. There are quite a few characters. You can kind of see who the main ones are. There's probably about like 6 that you kind of need to remember. But I actually have one of these. And so what I decided to do was I wrote down kind of what I feel like was the main characters and their profession, just in case I don't get to the sequel right away. I can just look back on that and refresh my memory of who does what. But I'm actually really rooting for the survivalist group. They live in Desperation, California. There's a husband-wife couple and their dog Claymore, so I'm rooting for the dog. And Shotgun and his husband Fred. So I really want to know what happens to them, so I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel. And so up next we have Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. This was my Alice in Wonderland jar pick that she picked for me, and I can see why Alice wanted me to read this one. This was a good reminder that not all horror is transparent. And sometimes as horror readers need a reminder of that. It's not all blood, guts, and serial killers. Like, I was bored at the beginning. I went into it blind, thought it was a novel. Then I realized it was an anthology. But I realized what she was trying to convey. That there's horror in everyday life. You just may not realize it as horror. But it is really horrific if you think about it. You know, things with segregation, ageism, sexism, racism. Someone said this is required reading in their school, and I can see why. The Lottery, the title one, is very how rituals and group-like thinking and tradition can kind of go bad sometimes. So that would be this would also be a good group discussion, because I would be interested, the story that affects you, like unsettles you the most, is probably because you're either scared to go through it, are going through it, or have gone through it. And that's what makes it so horrific, is that it happens, and it is happening. Like, let's say you have a factory job where your boss doesn't even know your name. Like, you're just number 2675309. That happens, and it's pretty sad and horrific if you think about it, that you have to go through that. Like, for me personally, the one that affected me was the demon lover, and I have not had a demon lover. But this woman is going around town looking for her fiance, and if I remember right, she's in her wedding dress. I can't remember that, but or it's on her wedding day, and she can't find her fiance, and people are judging her for it. They're like not treating her that well. It's like they're looking at her like she's going around trying to find her man, like you could ever find a man. And it's probably because that, even though this was written, you know, a while ago, women, I think, still go through that. Like, I know I do, where I've never been engaged or married, and I feel like I get judged for it. So I'm kind of like, back off of her. Like, there's this subtext, like, he may not be human and he might be a demon. But to me, that wasn't the horrific part. What was horrific was the way they were looking at her and judging her. And I'm like, look, I am perfectly fine being single. If it's not true love, then I'm not getting married. I don't want to settle. And if I am alone, you know, I have my books. I can be alone and happy. Like, leave her alone. So if you haven't read Shirley Jackson, I don't know if I'd start with this, because she's a great writer and you might get bored with this one. But if you like horror and looking for something different, then check this one out and let me know what you think. So I stepped outside my comfort zone and I got a contemporary romance. The Little Bookshop of Love Stories by Jamie Admons. It was a cover buy, I'm not gonna lie. Look at that, it's so pretty. It takes place in England, and it's about a girl named Hallie, and she's very clumsy, can't keep a job, but she ends up winning a bookshop by a man named Robert called Once Upon a Page, and the bookshop isn't doing that great. It's in disarray, you know, unorganized. There's too many books, but he has such frequent customers that it's kept him in business. But she realizes it's not going to survive that much longer unless she does something. And she gets an offer from a man named Drake saying, you know, these bookshops are becoming a thing of the past anyway, so sell it to me. And she's like, shut up, no. So, you know, you got to like her feistiness and her determination. You're rooting for her. And then she meets a man named Dimitri who frequents her shop, and he's an artist. So he says, hey, I'll help you out by doing window displays for you. And they develop sort of this because they have this mutual love for books. And it's definitely a novel that people are talking about their love for books a lot. So you could appreciate that. And they basically bond over that, and friendship forms, and, you know, a love story happens, which I like friendship too, love story. But they find these hidden messages in some of the books in her bookshop. They try to find the people they belong, and they kind of make a thing out of it. And the only thing, it was a little cheesy sometimes, and the big twist at the end was pretty predictable, and I honestly think she overreacted a little bit, but I understand there needs to be drama. So overall, I love this book, and I even said to myself, even if I don't like this book, it's staying on my shelf because of how gorgeous it is. But luckily I did like it. So up next I have Hannah Jane's The Revenge. This is a YA thriller about a boy named Tony who breaks up with his popular girlfriend with famous parents named Hope. He lets everyone think that she did the breaking up because he doesn't want to deal with the drama. She gets revenge on him by reading aloud his love poems to the school and embarrassing him. So he gets revenge on her by posing as her on the internet, exposing some things about her and her name, things like that. And she ends up disappearing. So he kind of feels at fault because it could have been a stalker. Unfortunately, this is the one I did not care for. The chapters were very short at the beginning, and in thrillers, they sometimes do that to get the suspense going. But with this one, it felt like it didn't connect to any of the characters. None of them were really likable. I ended up honestly skimming some in the middle. I kind of guessed what already was happening at the beginning. So it was a nice twist, I guess, if you didn't expect it. But the bad guy was pretty one-dimensional and predictable, and it wrapped up really quickly. It's one of those, like, all of a sudden, bam, it's done. So it didn't even feel worth it in a way. So yeah, I didn't particularly care for this one, but luckily I got it from the dollar store. So this next one is short and sweet. This is Abduction Etiquette by Jim Ryan. I found this at a thrift store. This is going to be for a specific kind of reader. It's a book of basically shorts, and it's told, a lot of them are told in more of an advertisement commercial kind of style, but he's very witty and sarcastic, and he's poking fun at random subjects, anything from one's titled like Chernobyl Resort to Shakespeare Relay, where Shakespeare characters like Hamlet or Macbeth are having a race. There's stuff about fish condoms and angry microwaves. Here's Mad Appliance. This is a taste of what you would get. It's so boring. I mean, for goodness sake, how many times could you take having popcorn bags and TV dinners shoved into you before you snapped? I hate TV dinners. The way they're sectioned off like cubicles in an office building, and of course the Salisbury steak always gets the biggest office. The dessert just sits there suffering, wedged in between the corn and the potatoes, cut off from all oxygen sources, gasping for breath. You know you're supposed to poke a hole through the plastic before you put the TV dinner in, but do you ever do it? No. You just greedily tear the box off of it and shove it into me as though I'm some kind of cheap prostitute. So that's the taste of what this kind of is. So if that sounds like something you like, definitely give it a shot. He definitely sounds like the kind of guy I would like to go out for a drink with. And it would probably be a very interesting conversation. This next one is Nunshell Sleep by Ellie Marney. I was attracted to the knife on the way out of Barnes & Noble. This has been dubbed a YA Silence of the Lambs, so I had to get it. And it's about a girl named Emma, who is a survivor girl, and a boy named Travis, who is a U.S. Marshal candidate. And they get recruited by the FBI to basically sort of interview cold cases and juvenile serial killers. And I was like, okay, I'll bite, but I hesitated. I hate it when some authors, when they put teenagers in an adult career world, like the police or FBI, they always like to dumb down to make it believable. the police. Like, the police, they make them seem like they're off Reno 911 or Super Troopers or something. And I hate it when they do that, you know what I mean? To make it work. And she didn't do that here, so I appreciate that. Like, the FBI, I guess because it's more of an experiment, it's not really like them starting off helping with a case. But it does kind of happen that way because there's an active case, and Emma goes to interview a juvenile serial killer named Simon, who seems to know information about this active case. So that's where I think kind of the Silence of the Lambs comparison comes in. So I did like it. If there's a sequel, I will definitely read it. I was a little surprised, though. I didn't really get the chemistry like Clarice Hannibal off of Emma and Simon. I liked Emma and Travis's relationship, and Simon, he has a sister in this one. I really liked him and the sister's relationship, too. I felt more chemistry there, but they may just be building up maybe more to Emma and Simon. And Simon was a little... I liked him, but he was a little, I don't want to say forced. He was eccentric, but it was almost like trying too hard a little bit. But I did really like Travis. I think him and Kristen were actually my favorite, which were the side characters. And I did care enough about Emma, and I'm interested to see what Simon will do next. So if you like YA and you're kind of interested in serial killer kind of things, check this one out. It might be worth a go for you. So I really loved this next one. This is Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. It's a middle grade book about an 11-year-old girl named Ollie who is still mourning the loss of her mom. It's just her and her dad. She doesn't want to socialize or make new friends. She just wants to read. There's a new girl named Coco and a jock named Brian who are her classmates. And one day Ollie comes across a woman talking gibberish and is about to throw a book away. She takes the book, and it turns out to be a journal regarding a family that lived there. So Ollie and her classmates go on a field trip, and something bad happens, and Ollie kind of knows what's going on because of the journal, so it's up to her and Coco and Brian to save the classmates from the smiling man. Now, I loved how the author handled her grieving her mom. She wasn't perfect at the beginning. You could tell she was still kind of angry, so she made some mistakes. And Coco and Brian were great supporting characters for her in developing as a character, and their developing friendship was very realistic. Like, it took something bad to happen for them to really come together and help each other out. So I thought this was very well done, and it even had plenty of creepy moments to satisfy this horror reader. Like, I had to keep in mind it is a middle grade book, but it was genuinely had some kind of creepy-ish stuff, Goosebumps kind of style going on. But I really enjoyed this one so much that I picked up the sequel, Dead Voices. So up next, I have another middle grade book that I absolutely loved. This is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. And I thought this was going to be a horror because of the skulls stuff, but it's more of it is a secret society skull and bones kind of thing going on. So it's about an 11-year-old girl named Emmy, whose dad disappeared when she was 3. Now, her work is kind of taking over. She doesn't really have a lot of time to spend on her, so she's sending her off to boarding school in England. Now, before she goes, Emmy gets a letter from a friend telling her not to throw anything of her dad's away. And she's like, what are you talking about? So she searches her house and finds these medallions that have these symbols on them. She takes them with her to the boarding school in England, a very prestigious school, and finds these symbols along the boarding school, and basically finds out her dad may have been part of the secret society called the Order. Now, she has a mean girl for a roommate named Victoria, and she makes friends with this girl named Lola, who's kind of a tough girl, and whose mom is the, I think they call them headmistresses over there, and a boy named Jack, who's more the artsy type. Now, I loved how the friendship sort of developed. It is a secret society, who do you trust kind of thing. So there would be times she may not have really trusted Jack and Lola. Their friendship was kind of tested before it fully, so I appreciated that. And then you have to remember it's a middle grade book, so it's not that it was slow paced, it's just they're middle grade kids, they're 11s, so it's not like they could go out and drive and find out information. But you definitely felt the danger there, like something more powerful than them that they may not want to be delving too much into secret society kind of thing, because usually money and power is involved. So I think the author did a very good job. I actually picked up the sequel, The Secret of Whitestone Gate, and it looks like that. I haven't read it yet. But you know I really love a book if I go ahead and buy the sequel. So definitely if you like Secret Society and you don't mind middle grade, you might want to check out this series. So I finally did it. I read Anne of Green Gables. Actually, I listened to the Audible because it was narrated by Rachel McAdams, and I like her voice. She did a good job, and it was free. But I do have these. So for those of you who don't know, Anne of Green Gables is a coming-of-age story about an orphan girl named Anne Shirley, who's red-haired, freckled, scrawny. She gets adopted by a brother-sister named Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, and it doesn't start off very well. So Marilla actually meant to adopt a boy, and the orphanage sent Anne instead. A very happy mistake. Matthew goes and picks her up, but takes to her immediately. He's a very shy man, doesn't talk a lot, but Anne talks a ton. Marilla's like, no, we got to send her back. We need a boy to help with the farm because Matthew's getting on in age. I feel like kind of everybody knows the story, but it's the first one is basically her younger. Now I know Gilbert Blythe is a huge thing to people. I saw the TV movie when I was little and had a huge crush on Gilbert, and a lot of people may have seen Anne with the E. And I saw the first season, and again, he's adorable. Love Gilbert Blythe's character. But he's not a lot in the first one. He is definitely mentioned. So if you go into this one expecting the romance thing between Anne and Gilbert, she's too young in this one. This is her relationship with Marilla, Matthew, and Diana Barry, her kindred spirit. She wants a best friend. She wants to be a daughter, develop her own. Like, romance is way later on. I have to say, seeing the movie and then reading the book, definitely in the book, made me love Matthew even more, number one. But also I appreciated Marilla a bit more, especially listening to the audio. That is the one thing about the audio. So I always felt, not negative toward Marilla, because their relationship between her and Anne was realistic if you think about it. Her and how beautiful it really was, that it wasn't so immediate. Like, Marilla is a spinster who is just used to quiet life, and she gets Anne, who is a chatterbox and unexpected. I guess listening to the Audible, I even had to cut off the Audible because as much as I'm rooting for Anne and I like her, love her, I had to cut it off because she's a chatterbox. I can only do a few chapters before I'm like, girl, you need to, for like 2 minutes, give me a break. So I can imagine how Marilla must have felt when she wasn't expecting an Anne to show up at her door, and how much patience she had to have with that. So it made me appreciate Marilla a lot more. I hate to say it, but it's just, I'm being honest. Like, the girl is a chatterbox, but at the same time, that made me appreciate Anne more, because after I cut her off, it's not like I didn't go back. You miss her when she's gone. She's very charming. As much as a chatterbox as she is, I missed her when she was gone. It's just a beautiful coming-of-age story, and it doesn't matter what genre you like. This one's worth a shot. It's very charming and very heartwarming. So up next, I have an adult horror. This is Jennifer McMahon's The Winter People. This is one I've been meaning to pick up because I've heard a lot about it in the horror community. So this has 2 timelines. It takes place present day and then 1908 Vermont. Now in present day, you have Ruthie, whose mom Alice. They live on this farmland. Ruthie kind of just wants to get away. She has a little sister named Fawn. There's a rock formation around her land called the Devil's Hand. People have spoken about disappearances and things like that. She doesn't really believe any of it. And then her mother Alice disappears, and her and Fawn and her boyfriend and Ruthie's boyfriend go kind of set out to find her. And she finds these journal entries. Oh, wow, I had an accent there. Journal entries by Sarah. Now, Sarah was the woman who lived in 1908 at that same land, who was found dead not long after her daughter Gertie died. She had a husband named Martin. So it's kind of one of those things, what happened to Sarah? What does it have to do with her mother's disappearance, the strange disappearances that go on? And it deals with death and the lengths people will go to keep someone alive, so to speak. So this one was it's got a good title because honestly it's a very good horror winter read. It's got an eerie vibe to it. I liked the pacing. Usually I don't like it when they bounce back and forth between timelines, but she did it really well. The journal entry concept was actually really good. And it definitely had some really creepy parts. So it didn't full on scare me or anything, but it definitely kept me engaged. And I liked the characters. I liked Ruthie. I liked Little Fawn. So if you like horror and you want a good winter horror read, I definitely check this one out. So I have 2 more. I'm saving my 5-star for last. This next one was a free Audible I got, The Snow Killer by Ross Greenwood. This is a crime thriller, and I usually don't read those. But this one started off with a bang. A family is hunted down. They have 2 children. They all die but one. And years later, these killings start happening, and they kind of seem like gang and drug related. But the detective, Barton, isn't so sure. And he kind of makes the connection. This is the first in a series, so this one was kind of character driven, but there was still plenty of action in there to be satisfying. D.I. Barton is a family man, very likable. He's a good friend. He's a great friend. I liked the side characters, and the pacing was really good. Him and his wife were actually a really cute couple. I will say that. I do remember thinking that in the story. There was a twist at the end. I kind of saw it coming, but not really, so it was a kind of a pleasant surprise. And this is definitely a revenge sort of story. So if you like the kind of crime thrillers where you're rooting for the good guy, but you could kind of understand why the bad guy is doing what they're doing, then give this one a shot. You'll probably like it. Okay, so for my grand finale, I have my 5-star, and that is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This was so good. So this is about a girl named Olivia Pryor who is a mute who sees ghouls. She's growing up at Maryland's orphanage for girls. The girls there are not so nice to her. They either ignore her or try to do stuff to her, but she doesn't take it lying down. Now she gets a letter one day from an uncle saying he's been looking for her and to return home to Gallant. The only thing is she has a journal from her mom telling her never to return home to Gallant, but she never really fully knew what that meant. But she hates the orphanage, so she leaves. But she doesn't find an uncle there. No one knows who sent her that letter. She does have a cousin. It is her family, but the cousin Matthew does not want her there, and he lets it be known. So she's kind of walking on eggshells because he's kind of the last remaining heir, and he can technically kick her out of the house at any minute. There is a housekeeper and a groundskeeper, Edgar and Hannah, who are very nice to her. But while she's kind of waiting around for her fate, if she can stay, because she wants to, she's still seeing ghouls. There's kind of a creepy-esque garden. And there's also sort of a door/gate, I guess you could say. I'll show you kind of a picture. There's some really cool pictures in here. I just put in my little journal thing, this book was hauntingly whimsical and beautifully creepy. The pacing was excellent. It even has a bit of a forbidden romance kind of love story in here. And usually I don't like the romance if it overshadows the plot, but this one didn't. Look at those. There's journal entries in there from the mom, and she basically needs to discover why they don't want her to stay, what's the big secret around her mom, like what happened to her mother, and her finding a family. I even teared up a little bit in this book. It was very heartwarming and heartbreaking. It just had everything I loved in it. Gardens, secret doors, secret gates, ghouls, likable characters. There's nothing I didn't like, so I had to give it a 5-star. I loved it. This is a library book, but I'm probably gonna buy it. What's the last 5-star you've read? Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope y'all have a good night. Bye.